Lily sat quietly at the small cafe table, her hands gently holding a gift she had wrapped with so much care. A novel Teddy once mentioned he loved. She had saved every little coin she could just to buy it. It wasn't fancy, but to her, it meant everything. She even walked a long distance, 2 whole miles, because she couldn't afford transport. Still, she smiled to herself, excited to see him. She had come early, hoping to surprise him. She kept looking at the door every time it opened, hoping it would be Teddy, but it wasn't. The waiter came by once, then twice, asking if she wanted to order. She politely said she was waiting for someone, but the 3rd time, the waiter looked at her with soft eyes and said, "Sorry, ma'am, he's not coming." Her smile slowly faded. She looked at her phone. No messages, no missed calls. She refreshed the screen again and again. Still nothing. With shaking hands, she checked his number. Blocked. The pain hit her chest like a sharp stone. She sat there for a few more minutes, pretending everything was fine, even though her eyes were getting wet. People passed by, chatting and laughing, while she stayed frozen in that moment. She wasn't just hurt. She felt invisible, like she never mattered. She finally stood up, holding the gift tight against her chest. She didn't throw it away. She couldn't, because even though he didn't show up, she had shown up with love. And that said more about her than it ever did about him. Lily could still hear his voice in her head, like it was yesterday. One day, while they were sitting on a bench after class, he had looked at her and said with a little laugh, "You're sweet, but I'm not a charity case." At first, she didn't even understand what he meant, but then he looked at her worn-out shoes, the simple scarf on her head, and smiled like he had just cracked a joke. She laughed too, not because it was funny, but because she didn't want to seem hurt. Teddy liked that Lily was kind. He liked how she listened to him, how she gave him full attention, and how she remembered every little thing he said. But he didn't like how she dressed. He didn't like how poor she was. He would tease her softly, never loudly, never in front of a crowd, but the words still stung. He once called her lipstick village makeup. He would point at the holes in her shoes and say, "Wow, I didn't know vintage fashion was back." And yet, Lily would smile through it all. She would nod and pretend it didn't matter, but something inside her started to shift. Every time he made those comments, she felt smaller, not because she believed him, but because a part of her wanted to prove him wrong. She didn't want to say anything back. She just stayed quiet, smiled, and stored the words deep in her heart. Words like, "You're smart, but not someone I'd take to a corporate dinner." It was like saying, "You're good, but not good enough," and that hurt more than anything. Lily never answered him with anger. She never shouted, never complained. But inside, it was like a wall was slowly being built, brick by brick. His words became those bricks, light jokes on the outside, but heavy in her chest. She started to wonder if maybe he would treat her better, if she wore better shoes or used different makeup. But then she reminded herself, she had always been more than how she looked. Teddy didn't know it then, but every joke he made was giving her one more reason to grow, one more reason to never let anyone laugh at her pain again. She didn't say it out loud, but that was the day she stopped chasing his love and started chasing her own worth. Lily walked home that evening with slow, tired steps. Her feet were sore, covered in dust, and her heart felt even heavier than her legs. The world around her moved as usual, cars passing, children laughing in the distance. But inside her, everything was silent. She wasn't thinking about the cafe anymore. She wasn't even angry that Teddy didn't show up. What hurt the most was that she had believed every word he said. She had believed that maybe she really wasn't good enough. Maybe her life was too small, too simple, too poor. When she reached her tiny room, she shut the door quietly. There was no one to talk to, no one to hug her, just her and the sound of the ceiling fan struggling to turn. It made a loud clicking sound as it spun slowly, like it might stop any moment. She sat on her bed, still in the same dress she had worn to meet Teddy. She didn't change. She didn't eat. She just sat there, holding the gift she never got to give him. Tears began to fall, one by one. Not the loud kind, just soft, quiet drops rolling down her cheeks. She didn't cry because of heartbreak. She cried because she had let someone else define her value. She had let his jokes, his silence, his rejection make her feel less. That was the part that broke her, not the man, but the doubt he planted in her heart. But after some time, something inside her shifted. She wiped her tears. She looked around her room. Small, yes, but hers. The bulb above her blinked like it was struggling too, but it still gave light, just enough. She took a deep breath, pulled her small laptop closer, and opened it. Not to message him, not to check his social media, but to look for something new. She started searching for online courses, typing jobs, anything she could learn or do. That night, under that broken fan and flickering bulb, Lily made a promise to herself. She would not let this be the end of her story. She didn't want revenge. She didn't want to prove anything to him. She just wanted to find the version of herself she had forgotten, the strong, smart, kind girl who deserved more than waiting in cafes for people who didn't care. That night wasn't about love. It was about waking up. And Lily, she was finally ready. Lily didn't tell anyone what she was doing. She didn't post about her goals or share quotes about success. She simply got to work. After that painful night alone in her room, she made a choice. She would never again let anyone make her feel small. She didn't care about showing people her progress. She only cared about building something real. She started with whatever she could find. She joined free online tech classes at night, sometimes falling asleep on her keyboard, but never quitting. In the mornings, she wrote resumes for people, helping them sound confident on paper, even when she was still learning to believe in herself. She said yes to every small job that came her way, cleaning offices before sunrise, arranging files, delivering food. Nothing was too small for her, because she knew where she was going. Most people didn't notice her. She wasn't posting selfies or fancy captions. There were no likes, no hearts, no online support. But inside her quiet world, something powerful was growing. She was learning to code, understanding how apps worked, how websites were built. Slowly, she was shaping a new version of herself, stronger, wiser, and more focused than ever. Meanwhile, Teddy was busy showing off. His social media was full of photos, brunches at hotels, group selfies with friends, captions that made his life look perfect. But Lily didn't look at those posts anymore. She had muted his updates and muted her emotions. While he chased claps and comments, she chased skill and stability. Sometimes she felt tired. Sometimes she missed the idea of love. But every time she wanted to give up, she remembered that cafe table and how it felt to be left behind. That memory kept her moving, not with bitterness, but with quiet fire. She didn't want to prove anything to Teddy anymore. She just wanted to never feel powerless again. She saved every little amount she earned, bought a second-hand laptop that worked better, practiced harder, made mistakes, and learned from them. She didn't need anyone to tell her she was doing well. Her progress became her proof. Every line of code she wrote, every late night she pushed through, it became her silent victory. Lily was no longer waiting for someone to choose her. She was choosing herself every single day. And step by step, job by job, she was building a life that no one could laugh at, no one could walk away from, and no one could ghost again. Lily had worked hard for months, preparing her small tech idea. It wasn't fancy or shiny, but it was hers. One day, she finally got a chance to present it to a group of young investors at a startup hub. She walked into the building nervously, holding a simple folder with her pitch deck, a few printed pages showing her idea, her plan, and her dreams. Her palms were sweaty, and her heart was beating fast. This chance meant everything to her. While waiting in the lobby, she held a cup of tea in one hand and her pitch folder in the other. She wasn't paying much attention when someone walked around the corner too quickly. In a blink, the tea spilled, right on the shirt of a man she didn't even see coming. Lily froze. "Oh no, I'm so sorry," she said quickly, panicking, already reaching for tissues from her bag. The man looked down at his shirt, then looked at her. Instead of getting angry, he laughed softly and said, "No worries, I was cold anyway." His calm reply surprised her. She looked up and finally saw his face. He was young, well-dressed, and carried himself with quiet confidence. He had kind eyes, the kind that made you feel safe even when you made a mistake. They sat down in the same waiting area, and he asked her what she was there for. Lily shyly explained her idea, an app to help young people in small towns find online jobs. He listened, not with fake interest, but with real focus. He didn't interrupt. He asked smart questions. And most of all, he looked at her like she mattered. "My name is Kwabena," he said, stretching out his hand. I'm an angel investor. I help people with promising ideas get started. Lily's eyes widened. She had heard that name before. Kwabena was known for investing in young African startups. He had built success from nothing, just like she was trying to do. But what shocked her most was how humble he was. He didn't talk about her clothes. He didn't care that her pitch deck was printed and not digital. He saw her idea, her hard work, her courage, and he respected it. That meeting didn't just open doors. It changed something inside Lily. For the first time, someone powerful believed in her without making her feel small. It wasn't just about money or business. It was about being seen. And that simple moment, one spilled tea and one kind smile, was the beginning of everything. Kwabena didn't treat Lily like just another startup founder. He didn't just ask about her business or how much money she needed. He asked about her, where she came from, why she started the app, what her dreams really were. And for the first time, Lily felt safe enough to tell her full story. She told him about being ghosted, about being laughed at for being poor, about walking miles to meetings with hope in her heart and dust on her feet. Kwabena didn't interrupt. He just listened, really listened. And instead of giving her pity, he gave her respect. One day, he invited her to a big tech conference in Kigali. It was her first time flying anywhere. She expected to share a room or stay somewhere basic. But when she arrived, she found everything already arranged. Her own room, clean and quiet. No questions asked, no pressure, just space to breathe and grow. At the conference, he didn't treat her like an assistant or just a guest. He introduced her as his business partner. In every meeting, he asked for her opinion. And when she hesitated, he gently reminded her, "You don't owe me gratitude, just grow." Those words stayed with her. No one had ever said that before. Slowly, their work turned into something deeper. They would stay up late after meetings, not just discussing numbers, but life. He encouraged her to believe in her own voice. He never made her feel small, even when she doubted herself. He helped her see that her past didn't make her weak. It made her powerful. Over time, their bond grew. They still worked hard. They still built the app together. But now, there was laughter too. Trust. A quiet joy. Lily found herself smiling more, worrying less. For the first time, love didn't feel like a test she had to pass. It felt like rest. It felt like home. One quiet evening, after a long day of meetings, Kwabena held her hand and gave her a small box. Inside was a ring. Not huge, not flashy, just simple, stunning, and perfect. And more than that, it was hers. Not because she changed who she was, but because someone finally saw her worth just as she was. He didn't just invest in her app. He invested in her heart, in her peace. And that made all the difference. Teddy was scrolling through his phone one evening, just like he always did, liking random posts, watching short videos, and checking people's updates. Then, without warning, something caught his eye. A photo, a familiar face. He paused. It was Lily, dressed beautifully, smiling. And right beside her stood a man in a sharp suit, holding her hand. At first, Teddy laughed. "These girls and their Photoshop," he said to himself. "Trying to look rich now, huh?" He shook his head and scrolled down. But then another photo popped up. Then a video. Then someone's caption. "So proud of Lily and Kwabena. What a power couple." His hand stopped moving. Wait, Kwabena? He clicked on the tag. The location was a luxury resort in Zanzibar. The page was verified. The guests in the background were real people he recognized, some even from his own business circle. He zoomed in on the man standing next to Lily, and his stomach dropped. It was the same man he had pitched his startup idea to just 2 months ago. Kwabena, the investor who politely turned him down after one short meeting. Teddy had brushed it off at the time, thinking maybe the timing was wrong. But now it all made sense. While he was showing off his business plan, Kwabena was already building a future with Lily. He blinked at the screen in disbelief. The girl he once called too poor to take seriously was now engaged to the man he was trying so hard to impress. Teddy suddenly felt something he couldn't explain. It wasn't just jealousy. It was something heavier, something that made his chest tighten. Because this wasn't just about a relationship. It was about being wrong. Loudly, publicly, painfully wrong. He had laughed at Lily's simple clothes, her background, her dreams. He thought she would stay small, stay invisible. But now, her smile was everywhere. Her joy was real. And the man by her side, someone powerful, someone he couldn't ignore. Teddy stared at the photo again. This time, he didn't laugh. He didn't say anything. He just sat there, quiet, holding his phone like it might burn in his hands. He kept scrolling back, looking for signs, trying to understand how she got from there to here. But deep down, he already knew. While he was chasing attention, Lily was building herself. And now, the whole world could see it, and so could he. Teddy was sitting at his desk when the email came through. It had no subject line filled with drama, just a simple heading, wedding invitation, Lily and Kwabena. He opened it out of curiosity, thinking maybe it was sent by mistake. But as the image loaded, his screen filled with gold and cream colors, soft, clean, elegant. There were no loud words, no fake excitement, just class, just calm. The invite had all the details, the date, the venue, the dress code. Everything was perfect. But what made him stop and stare wasn't the design. It was the small handwritten message at the bottom. It read, "Thank you, Teddy. Your silence built my voice. Lily." He blinked, reading it again, then again, and again, 5 times to be exact. And then one more, just to be sure he wasn't imagining it. He leaned back slowly in his chair, and something inside him sank. For years he had thought he was above her. He believed his silence, his absence, meant power. That ghosting her was a way of showing control. He never thought about how deeply it might have hurt her, or how she might rise because of it. But now, she was thanking him, not in a bitter way, not with anger, but with something worse, calm strength, the kind that makes you realize you were never as important as you thought. For the first time in a long while, Teddy didn't feel successful. He didn't feel admired. He felt empty. All the deals, the flashy posts, the fake friends, none of them could fill the hole that one message left in his chest, because it reminded him of what he lost. Not just Lily, but the chance to grow with someone real, someone pure. He thought ignoring her made him the winner, but now he saw it clearly. It only made him the lesson. He stared at the invite, knowing he wasn't being asked to come. It was never about attending. It was about knowing that the girl he once left waiting had built a life so full that she had no room left for regret, only gratitude, and that broke him in the quietest way. Teddy stood quietly outside the wedding venue. His shirt didn't fit well, and the shoes he wore weren't his. He had borrowed the clothes from a friend just to look decent, just to feel like he belonged. But deep down, he knew he didn't. He wasn't here to be part of the celebration. He was here because something inside him couldn't let go. He had to see her. From a distance, he watched as the music played and guests took their seats. Laughter filled the air. Lights sparkled. Flowers lined the walkway. And then she appeared, Lily. She walked down the aisle slowly, her head held high, her dress flowing behind her like a soft breeze. Her smile was calm, beautiful, unshaken. She looked like someone who had healed, someone who had found peace. The girl he once laughed at, once ignored, once called too poor, now looked like royalty. But not because of what she wore, because of how she carried herself, with grace, with dignity, with strength. Teddy's throat tightened. He wanted to speak, maybe shout her name, maybe just whisper, "I'm sorry," or "I was wrong." But before he could move, one of the security guards stepped in front of him. "Sir, this area is for invited guests only," the man said politely but firmly. Teddy nodded slowly, saying nothing. He understood. He didn't belong here, just like she didn't belong in his life back then. He didn't belong in hers now. So he stood back and watched her from afar, watched her take the hand of the man who stood proudly beside her, watched her laugh gently as vows were exchanged, watched her step into a life that had no space left for people who once made her feel less. The pain he felt wasn't loud. It was quiet, like an old wound that suddenly started bleeding again, because he realized something. Just like that day in the cafe when she waited and he never showed up. Now it was his turn. He was the one on the outside, waiting, watching, wanting to speak, but too late to matter. He stayed until the end, until the last song played, until the last chair was cleared. And then, without saying a word, he turned around and walked away. Not because he didn't care, but because she didn't need to hear anything from him anymore. And in that silence, he finally understood what it meant to be truly left behind. Lily never used her success to show off. She didn't post long messages about how far she had come or how wrong people were about her. She didn't use her story to throw shade. Instead, she chose to give back. While others were waiting for her to brag, she was busy planting seeds for others to grow. She started a platform online, not for fame, but to help girls like her. Girls from small towns, broken homes, dusty classrooms. Girls who had big dreams, but no one to guide them. Lily offered free tech lessons, scholarships, and mentorships. She taught them how to build apps, how to apply for remote jobs, how to believe in themselves again. And each time one of them succeeded, she celebrated quietly, with a full heart. Her story spread, not because she shouted it, but because it was real. People noticed her work. They shared her posts, not because they were dramatic, but because they were full of hope. Lily became known not just as someone who made it, but as someone who helped others rise too. Every once in a while, she would look at her wedding photos, the flowers, the smiles, the soft glow in her eyes. But what made her smile the most wasn't the ring or the dress, or even the man she married, though she loved him deeply. It was who she had become. She smiled because she remembered the girl who sat alone in a cafe, holding a small wrapped gift with shaky hands. The girl who cried under a broken fan, unsure of her worth. The girl who said yes to small jobs, with a big dream in her heart. And she smiled, knowing that girl had never given up. Lily didn't chase revenge, she chased purpose. And in the end, she got something sweeter than payback: peace. She bloomed quietly, gracefully, exactly where people once said she didn't belong. And the world? It watched her grow. If this story touched your heart, don't just scroll. Drop a heart if you believe in silent strength. Share this with someone who needs a reminder. Your pain can become your power. Tag a woman who's blooming against all odds. Follow for more real stories that heal, inspire, and uplift. Your voice matters. Your story is not over.